Hi teachers, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessica Tobin here at Elementary Nest, and today we are going to be talking about summer to-do lists and things that you can prep this summer to help get your back to school time organized and stress-free as you can. So throughout this video, I'm going to be talking maybe 5 or 6 tips that you can do. And I'm going to offer you a free ebook. And in this free ebook, there are 45 tips for you that I collected from other teachers. And I compiled them all in a book for you. And they're organized by classroom organization, behavior management, curriculum development, and more. I did update it this year, because when I created it like 2 years ago, I was collecting some pandemic virtual learning related topics. So I did update that to take those out. I did leave anything that was about digital learning that you can do in your classroom. I left those in, but anything that was like synchronous, asynchronous learning, I took that out because currently we're not in that stage, but we are still learning some ways to keep that digital in our classroom. So there are a couple tips in there for digital. So I'm going to go through a couple and then I'm going to give you guys the link for this freebie. So tip number 1 that I have, I'm going to pull it up here. It is to get yourself familiar with your state's standards. So several years ago, it was Common Core for everyone, and then multiple states have broken off and gotten their own state standards. Or maybe your state this year, brand new, branched out and made their own state standards. So if you are either getting brand new standards, or you're a first-year teacher, or maybe you just don't feel like you are as fresh on your standards as you could be, go ahead and look up your state standards and really get yourself familiar with that. So this is one of those tips that I got from teachers. They said to make sure you go back and check through each of your standards to see if that's actually something that is covered in your curriculum. So you may have a big box curriculum, and then you have your state standards from, your district or your state. Make sure that those all align. So if you taught Wonders or Envision Math, and you taught it all through this year, followed it well, and you realize that some of those state standards are not in there, you may want to create some sort of timeline or pacing guide or scope and sequence where you can add those state standards in. So definitely familiarize yourself with everything, all domains, to ensure that you're not missing any for your students. And then we've got our second tip. Let's see, I'm pulling it up. So your second tip is to go ahead and get all of your back to school night or open house handouts ready. So this is, and there will be some changes to this because you may have student specific work, like if you don't get your class list until August, there may be some things that you can't get because you don't have specific information on students. However, if you know during open house you're going to give a student questionnaire, a parent questionnaire, I've seen some really cute like flip books for open house night. Some teachers like to do like drawing activities for open house. If you're going to do any sort of open house or back to school packets, go ahead and print those out now. You know you're going to use them. I would suggest, unless you have access to your school or a super good printer, maybe send them to Staples and get some of that material ready. If you don't have access to your school, but you don't want to pay for like Staples copies, totally fine. I would get all of your papers that you're going to use, maybe compile them in one folder, like if you've got some PDFs or some worksheets that you want to pull, put them in a folder so that the first day you can get into the school, or whenever the first day that you go to prep, all you have to do is open the file, print them all, and you're ready. So our third tip, here we go, let me pull this up. Okay, so map out a flexible pacing guide for all your subjects. So I do have free ELA pacing guides. I can provide a link in the description below. The ELA covers reading, writing, grammar, language, speaking, and listening. So I have a free one for K through 4 if you'd like that. The links are in the description below. Or you can find that your district may have some pacing guides already made for you. Either way, if you want to loosely create a pacing guide, it would be very advisable to get your math, your ELA, your science, your social studies, and any other required topics or subjects that you have to teach at your school, maybe world language or social emotional health. I don't know what your school requires, but any subject that is required, go ahead and create a very loose, flexible pacing guide that you can do or that you can alter throughout the year. If you go ahead and create that pacing guide that you know is going to be flexible, that you can change based on student progress and student success, if you go ahead and map that out for the whole year, you know that you're intentionally covering every single expectation of you throughout the year. So that'll help you make sure you get all those standards checked off. Our next tip number 4, is to brainstorm all of your routines. You don't have to have this solid yet because you may read some blogs over the summer or watch some YouTube videos over the summer on classroom routines that you want to tweak. But I would go ahead and start brainstorming how you want your mornings and your afternoons and your lineups and your specials time, your lunch, how those routines are going to look. And if you're a first-year teacher, you will need to tweak as you go, but having a very solid outline of how the kids line up, what expectations they have in the hallway. Morning routine, there's going to be a lot of moving pieces to your morning routine. You're going to have somewhere to put your lunches, somewhere to put your morning works, where they put their backpacks. I do have a YouTube video for morning routines that I can link in the description below if you guys are interested in watching that. That's this little sidebar. But go ahead, brainstorm what you want to do for all of your routines. That way, as you learn more, as you move through the year, you can tweak them as you'd like, but you at least have a solid idea of those expectations that you're going to teach on the first day of school. Tip number 5, go ahead and this, when I collected tips from all the teachers, this was probably the most repeated tip that any teacher gave, is to go ahead and prepare any centers that you know you're going to use throughout the year, because doing that during the school year is kind of a lot. You're grading papers, you're trying not to stay at school too late. If you know you're going to be using math centers, ELA centers, reading centers, grammar centers, go ahead, locate whether you are creating them yourself, buying them on Teachers Pay Teachers, finding some freebies on Pinterest. Go ahead, print them out. I do suggest going to Staples because the color copy is just very quality. And I don't have a good printer here, so I always end up printing at Staples. And then go ahead and laminating all of those and getting them cut. And I suggest putting them in little Ziploc baggies or some sort of like shoe box, and labeling them with like a Sharpie marker. It doesn't have to be fancy, but getting all of your stuff laminated. Now, if you have access to your school's laminator over the summer, I do suggest utilizing that because it's not going to cost you any money. But if your school doesn't have a laminator, or you aren't patient enough to wait for the floors to get waxed and get access back to the building, those little Scotch laminators with the Scotch pads are wonderful for at-home lamination. They're just a little bit more expensive than if your school offers that for you. But I do suggest getting the laminate and your scissors and a box of Ziploc baggies, cutting them all up and labeling them very clearly, grammar or language, plural nouns, irregular plural nouns. Make sure you're specific on labeling those bags so that once you get back into your classroom, you can sort those very nice and organized wherever you keep your centers. Tip number 5, let's see. Okay, so create anchor chart bases for your first month. So this will require one of the tips that I talked about before, which was pacing out your school year. And if you go ahead and outline what subjects you're going to teach in the first month or first 2 months of school, you'll know which anchor charts you're also going to be utilizing as well. So creating bases for your anchor charts, that is simply, making the cute header, making, your charts or whatever, and outlining it in a way that it's not done, but it's ready, that you can just pull it out during your lesson and participate with it with your students. So if you're doing an ask and answer questions anchor chart, you may want the students to be able to interact and build the anchor chart with you. If that's the case, totally fine. Create the header and whichever way you're going to set up the anchor chart, and then have it ready for the first day of school. A lot of teachers in the summer tip collection that I took said to go ahead and also laminate your anchor charts so that if students are putting sticky notes on them, or if you're wanting to write with a dry erase marker, you can erase them and start over and reuse these anchor charts year to year. So that is also a suggestion. If you have access to that big laminator, that would be very useful for you so that you can reuse your anchor charts every year. And we have, okay, and now here we go. We are pulling up our freebie. So there are there's 40, I lied earlier. There are 42 tips in this ebook for what to do this summer to kind of get yourself ahead and have a stress-free or less stressful beginning of the school year. So little things you can do throughout the summer that aren't going to overwhelm you and they're not going to stress you out, but little projects you can do that are going to really make those first couple weeks less stressful for you. So I'm going to put a link on the screen, and that's going to give you access to download this free ebook. It'll ask for your email and your first name, and when you plug those two things in, they will be sent directly to your inbox. And when you grab it from your inbox, it'll download to your computer and you can open it up. I would suggest using it as an ebook. It is a PDF file instead of printing it because it's in color. You can take notes on it, you can make a little checklist off of it, but it is free to use, and it was collected by other teachers to help you create your stress-free back-to-school season. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for this week's YouTube video. I will be back next week and we'll do some more teacher learning. Thanks guys.